In the silence between striving and surrender lies a wisdom older than time. It whispers through nature, in the steady course of the river, in the quiet rhythm of a falling leaf. You were not designed to force life into shape, but to understand it, to move with it, to shape yourself in response to its flow. This is the essence of Stoicism, not in manipulation of events, but in mastery of the self. To live well, the Stoics believed, is not to press harder against the world, but to meet it as it is. We've all been conditioned to believe that success, peace, and purpose come only through struggle and strain, that if we don't push, claw, and demand our way forward, we'll be left behind. But what if that constant force, that endless exertion, is what's keeping us from clarity? The Stoics didn't preach passivity, but they warned against trying to bend reality by force. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Let things happen in their own time. All things proceed as they must." That's not resignation. That's power restrained by wisdom. To force is to fight the current, but the river is always stronger. The Stoic does not build dams. They build vessels. They do not rage at the wind. They adjust their sails. This mindset requires courage, not control. Patience, not passivity. Trust, not tension. When you stop forcing, you start seeing. When you stop pushing, you start flowing. That is where strength becomes serene. That is where life begins to work with you, not against you. Let us now explore how this ancient principle of non-forcing can be cultivated in our lives, not by withdrawing from effort, but by directing our energy with discernment and grace. Let us walk this path of Stoic power, where stillness is strength and surrender is not weakness, but wisdom. Chapter 1. The Art of Allowing. What is meant by "don't force anything"? It's not an instruction to do nothing. It's a challenge to do only what is necessary, only what is in harmony with nature and reason. Epictetus reminded us that we control our will, not the world. Forcing is often the desperate act of a mind that has not accepted this truth. There is a quiet confidence in those who don't force things. It's not that they lack ambition or drive. It's that their ambition is guided by clarity, not craving. They act when the time is right, not when their ego demands action. There is timing to everything, and those who rush ahead, those who grab at outcomes, often spoil what would have come naturally if left to ripen. The Stoics observed nature often. They watched how the tree grows, not by pulling on its own branches, but by standing firm and drawing nourishment from its roots. The same with us. Growth is not forced. It is cultivated. It is slow. It is patient. But it is unstoppable when it flows from within. So often, our impulse to force arises from fear. Fear that things won't go our way. Fear that others will overlook us. Fear that we'll fall behind. But that fear distorts our judgment. It clouds our perception. It pulls us away from the truth that the best things in life are aligned, not imposed. If you force a flower to bloom before its time, you destroy it. If you force love, success, or meaning, you get a shallow version of what you seek. Let us take this into our daily lives. When we feel that tension, that urgency to press something forward, let us pause. Ask, is this the right time? Is this the right direction? Is this aligned with nature or with my anxiety? To allow is not to avoid. It is to act without strain, without distortion. It is to say, I will do my part, and I will let the rest unfold as it should. Chapter 2. Resistance reveals attachment. Where there is resistance, there is attachment. This is a key Stoic insight. When we find ourselves trying to force something, a relationship, a plan, a result, it often reveals not just our desire, but our dependency. We are not simply pursuing an outcome. We are gripping it so tightly that its absence feels like destruction. Marcus Aurelius often returned to the idea that nature is wise, and to live well is to live in agreement with it. When something resists us, repeatedly, deeply, clearly, it might be life telling us, "This is not your path," or "not your path yet." The wise person does not argue with reality. They read it like a map. This doesn't mean we avoid all difficulty. The Stoics were warriors of the soul. They knew hardship was inevitable and at times necessary. But they chose their battles with discernment. They didn't resist for the sake of pride, nor did they challenge every obstacle in their path. They resisted only where resistance upheld their principles and contributed to inner fortitude. To force something merely to satisfy ego, to make things bend to our will at all costs, that is not strength. That is slavery to desire, a chain forged by impatience and fear. Real strength is quieter. It doesn't roar, it doesn't shout, it doesn't demand its way. True strength is found in restraint. It lives in the pause before the reaction. It thrives in the space between desire and action. It grows when we resist the compulsion to impose our will upon life and instead choose to align with what is. The stronger path is the one that permits detachment, that allows us to say, "I want this, but I do not need it. I desire this outcome, but my identity, my peace, my self-worth do not hinge on its arrival." The more lightly we hold the things we care about, the more clearly we see them for what they are, not trophies, not necessities, but opportunities. When you catch yourself pushing, clawing, manipulating, or obsessing, pause. Take a deep breath. Ask why. Ask what you're afraid will slip away if you loosen your grip. Is it fear of insignificance, of being misunderstood, of missing out? Ask whether your effort is driven by inner clarity or by the chaos of craving. Often these actions stem not from wisdom, but from insecurity. The mind spirals into what-ifs, into demands for certainty, into fear that something vital will escape us if we don't act now. Most often the answer exposes where you've attached your identity to something fragile: recognition, control, validation, results. The Stoics remind us that outcomes are never truly ours. They live in the realm of fate, in the hands of nature. What is ours are the things we carry within: our decisions, our discipline, our perception, our honesty, our consistency. We are responsible for what we bring to the table, not how the meal is received. You can strive without strain. You can pursue without pressure. You can act with great effort and still hold the outcome lightly. That is not only possible, it is the Stoic balance. It is the art of giving your all while expecting nothing. It is the calm in the storm, a steady presence amidst chaos. It is where serenity and strength finally meet, not as opposites, but as allies. It's how you walk forward, free of desperation, full of purpose. It's how you become rooted in your character, not your cravings. It is the discipline of detachment, where you show up each day with resolve, but without letting your spirit be hijacked by what you can't control. This way of being does not limit ambition, it elevates it. It clarifies it. It purifies your intentions so that what you pursue aligns with who you truly are, not with who you're trying to prove yourself to be. To practice this, watch your energy like a guardian. Tune into your body and your breath. Notice when something feels forced, when your shoulders tense, your thoughts race, your peace starts to fray. These are signals. When the effort begins to damage your internal stillness, it's no longer noble, it's corrosive. Step back, loosen your grip. Ask yourself, is this direction flowing from virtue or vanity? What am I defending, and does it actually need defense? The moment you release the need to force is the moment you create space for something more real to enter. Often, what remains when you release control is more powerful, more aligned, and more enduring than what you were desperately trying to construct. The Stoics trusted that life unfolds with order, not always our preferred order, but a deeper, wiser one. Nature doesn't rush, and neither should you. Trust the pace, trust the process. Trust that you are becoming exactly who you are meant to be, not by forcing, but by faithfully showing up and letting go. Chapter 3. The Quiet Power of Surrender. Surrender is a word misunderstood. In Stoicism, surrender is not about defeat, it is about discernment. It is the wisdom to know when to stop pushing and when to start trusting. This trust is not naive. It is rooted in the deep belief that the universe unfolds with order, even when we do not understand it. Seneca wrote, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. To live well is to be led, not dragged. To surrender is to walk in step with what is." The Stoic does not waste energy resisting what cannot be changed. That energy is precious. It is reserved for what lies within their control, their thoughts, their actions, their values. Think of the mountain. It does not chase the storm. It endures. It accepts what comes, not because it is weak, but because it is rooted. You too must root yourself, not in outcomes, but in principles, in courage, in acceptance, in clarity. The person who forces is always reacting. The person who surrenders is always choosing. In practice, surrender looks like this. You show up fully, you do your part with integrity, and then you release the outcome. You put in the work, not to manipulate the result, but to remain aligned with your highest values. You carry yourself with quiet diligence, knowing that you cannot orchestrate every detail, but you can shape your presence, your attitude, your intention. You do not beg, you do not grasp, you do not plead with life. You do not cling to expectations like lifelines. You understand that desperation corrupts the purity of your purpose. Instead, you offer your efforts freely, without condition, without bribe. You give because it is right to give. You speak because truth must be spoken. You act because to do so honors your character. True fulfillment is found in the act of living well, not in whether or not the world bows to your plans. You trust that what is meant will come in its own time, in its own way, and what is not meant will pass, no matter how tightly you try to hold it. This kind of surrender does not empty you, it strengthens you. It does not silence your ambition, it refines it. It brings a peace that cannot be taken by circumstance because it never depended on it to begin with. It is the peace of self-trust, the peace of knowing you walked in alignment even when outcomes were unclear. Apply this in your relationships. Let go of the need to be perfectly understood. Not everyone will resonate with your truth, and that's okay. You are not here to be universally approved. You are here to live authentically, to embody your principles with quiet certainty. The more you seek approval, the more you dilute your voice. The more you try to be everything to everyone, the more you risk losing your center. Let your clarity be enough. In your work, let go of the need to be endlessly praised. Praise fades, but integrity echoes. Recognition is fleeting, but character builds legacy. Let your excellence speak for itself without the noise of validation. When you create, create with love. When you serve, serve with heart. And release the compulsion to be seen for every step you take. The most meaningful contributions often go unnoticed, yet they leave the deepest impact. In your healing, release the timeline and trust the deeper rhythm of restoration. Healing isn't linear. It bends and loops. It stops and starts. It whispers and shouts. Sometimes you'll feel like you're soaring, and other times like you're unraveling, but both are progress. Trust it anyway. Stop trying to rush the process. Stop believing that discomfort is failure. Growth is uncomfortable. Mending takes time. Life does not bloom faster under pressure. It blooms when nourished, when given time and light, when cared for in silence and patience. A tree doesn't push itself to grow faster, it just keeps reaching upward, slowly and steadily. Be like that tree. Stop forcing people to understand you, to love you, to agree with you. Not everyone is ready for your truth, and that is a reflection of their season, not your worth. You cannot force insight. It blossoms when the soul is prepared to receive it. You cannot force recognition. Those who are meant to see you will. Your task is not to demand understanding, but to embody clarity. You can only live as an example, as a quiet lighthouse in the fog, guiding those who are ready, illuminating the way through consistency, presence, and calm resolve. Live your truth so clearly, with such unwavering sincerity, that you no longer feel the need to defend it. Let your actions say what your words cannot. Let your posture speak louder than your arguments. Everyone walks their own path, at their own pace. Some are not meant to walk beside you. Some will never catch up, and that is not your failure. It is simply life's design, a sacred unfolding of different lessons meant for different souls. Speak with truth, not performance. Act with honor, not control. Live your values with conviction, not arrogance. Love without expecting reciprocation. Help without demanding gratitude. Give without tallying returns. Sincerity does not keep score, it simply flows. The most powerful expressions of integrity are often invisible, done quietly and without applause. Keep showing up that way. Let your constancy be the proof of your belief. Let your lack of need to persuade be your sign of inner certainty. Show up fully and honestly, and let what is meant to remain stay, not because you forced it to, not because you convinced it to, but because it was aligned with your essence. What is rooted in truth will not require grasping to survive. Let the rest go. Let what no longer fits fall away with grace. Let what drains you release its grip like leaves falling from a tired tree at the end of a season. Don't beg for what requires begging to stay. Such things are not meant to be held. Don't cling to what peace asks you to release, for peace never demands what causes tension. And know that in the letting go, you are not losing. You are creating space for the divine arrangement of better things to take their place. You are clearing the noise so clarity can rise. You are stepping aside so that grace can step in. You are making space for peace to settle where pressure once lived. And that shift, though quiet, is the beginning of real power. Chapter 4. When Patience is Strength. In a world that celebrates urgency, patience becomes a superpower. It stands out because it defies the cultural current of speed, results, and immediate gratification. The Stoics knew that most mistakes come from haste, from reacting before understanding, from trying to force an answer when more observation was needed, from trying to push a door open when it was never ours to walk through. They taught that true wisdom often arrives in the waiting, and clarity emerges not from pressure, but from perspective. Patience is not passive, it is deeply active. It requires immense internal discipline to hold your ground while everything around you demands that you move. It requires strength to wait, not from indecision, but from discernment. It requires wisdom to endure the discomfort of uncertainty without succumbing to panic. It requires humility to admit that we do not control time, nor other people, nor the unfolding of events. No matter how disciplined, prepared, or determined we are, the great unfolding of life resists full control. But we do control our posture within them, and that posture can either be frantic and unstable or composed and rooted. We can meet chaos with calm. We can face the unknown not with panic, but with quiet conviction. This is not about ignoring difficulty. It's about choosing our position in the face of it. Our attitude becomes our anchor when everything else is adrift. When you feel that familiar pressure to act now, to fix it, to force it, pause, breathe. Remember that urgency can be a trick of the mind, a mask that fear wears. Ask yourself, is this urgency true, or is it fear in disguise? Is it a signal from wisdom or a reaction born of anxiety? Am I being called to act, or am I being pulled by dread? The Stoics remind us that we are not in control of the moment's arrival, only of our readiness. To be patient is to prepare in silence. It is to train when no one is watching. To refine your perspective, your responses, your virtues, while the world moves in its own time. It is to take each day seriously, knowing it might be the foundation for a moment that hasn't yet come. It is to be present, not idle. To be calm, not detached. It is to know that being ready matters more than being early. Patience teaches timing. It acts as a lens through which we see more clearly. It helps us distinguish between movement and progress, between effort and agitation. It teaches us that not all action is equal, and that some forms of stillness are far more productive than frantic busyness. It helps us distinguish between noise and signal, between action that is needed and action that is noise. When we cultivate patience, we become students of nuance. We begin to notice the small shifts, the subtle messages that haste makes us miss. It is the discipline of deliberate observation, the capacity to wait with intention, not idleness. The wise wait not out of laziness, but out of precision. They are not indifferent, they are attentive. They do not avoid action, they align it. They understand that a delayed action rooted in wisdom is more powerful than rushed action born of panic. They choose response over reaction, presence over pressure. They move not to prove, but to align. Their actions are the result of calm clarity, not emotional turbulence. They act with direction, not reaction. They do not confuse motion with meaning, nor urgency with importance. They take time to listen, not just to others, but to themselves, to their conscience, to the situation, to the deeper rhythm of events unfolding around them. They listen longer, observe more carefully, and act only when the moment calls them. Not their ego, not their fear, but their inner compass. This compass is not loud or aggressive. It is steady and still, refined through deep reflection, consistent practice, and self-honesty. They are willing to wait for signals that others miss because they have trained themselves to notice the quiet truths hidden beneath noise. In doing so, their actions become more effective, more intentional, more powerful. Each step they take carries the weight of wisdom and the elegance of restraint. Their movements, though measured, carry great momentum because they come from a place of full presence. Their focus is undivided, and their energy is not scattered by internal conflict or outer distractions. They are not driven by the ticking of the clock, but by the compass of their soul. This compass keeps them aligned with their purpose, allowing them to walk through life with integrity even when there is pressure to perform or conform. They are not racing to keep up with life, they are walking in harmony with it. And in that harmony, they find access to deeper insight, richer creativity, and more meaningful connection. They trust that not every opportunity is meant for them, and that their path cannot be rushed. They understand that clarity is more valuable than speed, and peace is more powerful than pressure. Peace makes decisions cleaner. Peace removes desperation. And in peace we become more persuasive, more influential, and more secure. They know that by waiting for the right moment, by preparing with patience, they can accomplish more with less. Their actions become concentrated, impactful, and lasting. This is the paradox of Stoic power. The slower you move with purpose, the faster you progress with peace. Because peace is not inaction, it is action without turbulence. It is strength without shouting. It is movement without the weight of panic. And in this still and focused state, the Stoic finds the sweet rhythm of mastery, not forced, but fluid, not frantic, but unstoppable. Let your patience speak. Let it be a signal to the world that you are not desperate, you are not grasping, you are not afraid to be still. There is something powerful about one who can wait without weakening. That is the soul of the Stoic. Chapter 5. Living with open hands. To live without forcing is to live with open hands, not grasping, not clinging. Open to receive, open to release. This is the posture of peace. This is the posture of power. So many live clenched, gripping plans, people, outcomes, identities. And in that grip, they lose themselves. They become tense, afraid, reactive. Their energy becomes brittle, their joy becomes conditional. They begin to live not from presence, but from pressure. The Stoics taught the opposite. Live light, travel light. Let go of the illusion that you must manage every detail, hold every thread, or carry every burden alone. Carry your values deeply, but your outcomes lightly. Know what matters, but don't let what you desire enslave you. Walk through life with integrity, but without demand. Be grounded in your character, not entangled in expectations. An open hand welcomes life. It allows you to hold what comes and to release what leaves. It does not chase, it does not force, it does not shrink or tense at the uncertainty of tomorrow. It trusts, not blindly, but with understanding. The Stoic understands that what is theirs will not need to be taken by force. What belongs will remain. What is real does not need to be clutched, argued for, or manipulated into staying. What is meant for you will come, and it will come without needing to be dragged in desperation. It will arrive with ease because it belongs in your orbit. An open hand is not weakness, it is readiness. It is the shape of surrender that still holds strength. It is the gateway through which grace flows in. To live this way, start by loosening your grip on control, on outcomes, on reputation, on approval, on timelines that do not belong to you, and stories that were never yours to hold. Let go of the internal scripts that say everything must happen now, that you must be everything to everyone, that your worth depends on being seen a certain way. Ask yourself, what am I holding too tightly? Is it a version of myself I've outgrown? Is it an expectation I inherited, not chose? What is it costing me? My peace, my clarity, my presence? And what would happen if I opened my hand? If I softened? If I trusted that I didn't have to white-knuckle my way through life? Often the answer is freedom, a spacious, quiet freedom that makes room for grace, for breath, for unhurried reflection. It's a freedom that doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't need to assert itself. It simply arrives when you stop clinging. This freedom isn't just a release, it's a return to the self, to the moment, to the core of what matters. It gives you room to listen more deeply, to speak more clearly, and to act more intentionally. Often, the result is clarity, because clarity lives where tension ends, where the fog of fear has lifted and the noise of control has quieted. You do not lose what is truly yours. You lose only what was weighing you down: fear, illusion, false control, the compulsion to orchestrate every detail of your life. And in its place you find something better: flow, where life becomes less about forcing and more about responding with grace; calm, where your nervous system feels safe enough to breathe again, to trust again, to rest again; strength, not from gripping harder, but from standing more rooted in who you are, what you believe, and what you are willing to release. Live like the Stoics, not with forced steps, but with firm ones, with steps that rise from principle, not panic, not with clenched fists, but with open hands, hands that know how to let go, how to receive, how to hold only what is meant to stay, not as one trying to capture life and bend it into submission, but as one welcoming it, walking beside it, witnessing it unfold with reverence instead of resistance. That is how peace enters, not through conquest, but through surrender, not through dominance, but through dignity. That is how power grows, not through domination, but through grounded presence, through knowing what is yours to shape and what is yours to release, through the quiet resolve to live aligned, not attached. That is the way of the open hand, and it is the way of the wise. It is the way that leads not to chaos, but to peace that endures. It is the path of one who no longer fears letting go, because they know that only what is real will remain. Chapter 6. Accepting the season you're in. Every life has seasons. There are times for planting and times for harvest, times for silence and times for action, times when things move with momentum and times when things seem to stand still. The Stoic learns to respect these rhythms with deep humility. They do not try to harvest in winter. They do not curse the quiet moments of waiting. They do not panic when the world seems to be passing them by. They trust the process of change, the wisdom of the cycle. They accept the season they're in, and they act accordingly. They observe before they act, reflect before they judge, and adapt instead of resist. Trying to force a season is one of the quickest ways to lose your peace. When you demand progress before it's time, or compare your path to someone else's, you sow the seeds of frustration and self-doubt. You rush what was meant to unfold slowly, and in that rush, you lose the lesson and the strength it was meant to build. When you compare your journey to another's or demand progress on your timeline, you introduce unnecessary suffering. Epictetus said, "Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and you will go on well." This is not passive, it's perceptive. It invites you to drop the illusion of control and develop the virtue of alignment. It teaches us to notice what life is showing us, rather than what we demand of it. It urges us to become students of timing, rather than prisoners of pressure. Perhaps your season is one of building quietly, in the dark. Perhaps it's one of rest, or healing, or waiting. Perhaps it is a chapter of unlearning, of release, of refining your inner world while the outer remains still. These seasons are subtle. They whisper rather than roar. They move like shadows, shaping you silently. That doesn't mean it's wasted. In fact, these are often the most fertile chapters of life, the soil from which all future growth springs. The Stoic understands that value is not always visible, that a seed beneath the soil is just as alive as the flower in bloom, that waiting is not passive, it is a form of preparation. Some of the most important growth happens when no one sees it, not even you. It is quiet, hidden, sacred work, the work of preparation, of laying foundations, and the Stoic honors that work with the same seriousness as they would a public victory. They know that the harvest is only possible because of the silent planting. To live without forcing is to be in harmony with time, not in resistance to it, not as an adversary, but as an apprentice to its wisdom. Time has its own logic, its own momentum, its own order. To try to rush it is to fight the tide. To trust it is to learn to move in step with the eternal rhythm. To trust that your pace is not broken, that your path is not lost, that your quiet season is not evidence of failure, but of form being shaped, of depth being carved, that your season is exactly as it needs to be, even if you can't yet see the shape of its purpose. You water the soil you've been given. You tend to what's in front of you, even if it feels like nothing is happening. You nurture what you can with patience, with presence, with faith. You resist the temptation to pull up the roots to check their progress. You let them take hold beneath the surface. And when the time is right, you will see the fruit. Not a moment too early, not a moment too late, but exactly when you are ready to receive it. But you do not pull on the stem to make it grow. You do not shout at the clouds to rain. You do not bargain with nature to bend to your will. You let it come. You create the conditions for life to unfold, and then you step back with reverence. And in doing so, you honor the very nature of life itself, the slow, wise, unforced way in which all things rise. Chapter 7. The difference between effort and forcing. It's important to clarify, not all action is forcing. The Stoics were doers. They did not shy away from work or struggle. They embraced it, but they chose it wisely. They valued discipline, training, and effort. They believed in the strength that comes from focused, purposeful living, but their effort was directed inward. They were more interested in who they were becoming than what they were accomplishing. They focused on character, not control, on will, not outcomes, on integrity, not intensity. Their energy went into shaping the inner self rather than shaping the world to their liking. This kind of action is calm, steady, and sustainable. Forcing, on the other hand, is effort twisted by fear. It is the energy of desperation cloaked in motion. It's action rooted in anxiety, in the need to have things now exactly as imagined, regardless of timing or alignment. It's trying to control what isn't yours to command: people, circumstances, outcomes. It's mistaking motion for progress, confusing noise for meaning. It's insisting on a path that reality resists, ignoring signs, bypassing natural order. And often it leads not to success, but to exhaustion, to burnout, to disillusionment. It wears down the soul because it disconnects effort from wisdom. Effort, when aligned with reason, brings peace. It is an offering of energy in harmony with your principles. It's the kind of exertion that strengthens rather than depletes, because it stems from purpose rather than panic. It doesn't demand, it contributes. It doesn't overwhelm, it organizes. It allows for consistent forward motion without sacrificing the core of who you are. It sustains itself because it grows out of conviction, not compulsion. Forcing brings pressure. It suffocates intention under the weight of obsession, distorting clarity and replacing it with tunnel vision. It demands that things move at your speed, bend to your expectations, meet your timeline. And in doing so, it traps you in a cycle of resistance. Effort respects the flow of things. It listens, adapts, and moves with clarity. It allows life to be a conversation, not a monologue. You do your part, and you remain attuned to what is happening around you. You adjust when needed. You rest when necessary. You honor your energy. Forcing tries to dam the river. It resists, manipulates, and creates tension. It forces conversations that aren't ready to happen. It pushes outcomes that aren't fully formed. It creates a false sense of urgency that leads to exhaustion rather than excellence. Effort builds because it works with what is. It aligns with nature, with timing, with purpose. It reinforces what is sustainable, meaningful, and authentic. Forcing breaks because it refuses to yield. It pushes against reality and fractures the spirit, leaving you empty despite all the action you took. The Stoic cultivates the former and rejects the latter, not because they fear work, but because they value wisdom. They choose what aligns, not what agitates. They know that true momentum is not frantic, it's deliberate, and that any effort not grounded in virtue will eventually turn into burden. So they commit to action that comes from presence, from values, from inner steadiness. They build, not because they force, but because they understand the rhythm of nature and move with it instead of against it. Ask yourself, am I acting from a place of clarity or from chaos? Am I working with life or against it? Is my effort grounded in values or driven by fear? Is my pace one of alignment or one of urgency? These questions help you identify where you are forcing, where you are gripping too tightly, where your action has become agitation. Often, when we feel exhausted not by the effort itself, but by the internal strain behind it, we are no longer aligned. We are chasing shadows, not standing in light. These questions act like a compass in moments of confusion. They point you back to your principles when the noise tries to pull you away from them. To reclaim your power, return to what is yours: your discipline, your choices, your perception, your response. Remember that no one can take these from you unless you surrender them first. Let go of what you cannot force, what lies outside the boundaries of your control, your authority, your responsibility. Let go not with bitterness, but with wisdom. The Stoics' work is hard, but it is not hurried. It does not rush for validation or race to outcomes. It is the steady rhythm of a person aligned with their soul. It is firm, but not frantic. It is deliberate, not desperate. That is the difference. That is the wisdom. And in choosing that path, you step into a kind of power the world cannot give and cannot take away. Chapter 8. Letting go of the need to control people. Perhaps the hardest area to apply this lesson is with people. We try to change them, convince them, make them see what we see. We believe we're helping, guiding, doing what's best, but often we are not loving them. We are trying to control them. We are trying to shape their behavior to fit our expectations, not accepting them as they are. This tendency is subtle, and it often hides under the disguise of care, but at its core, it is resistance to the reality that we are not the authors of another person's journey. The Stoics warned against this. They taught that other people's minds and choices are not within our control. They emphasized that to live in harmony with others, we must first understand the boundary between what belongs to us and what does not. And to try to force someone to feel, understand, or act a certain way is to set ourselves up for frustration. It breeds resentment. It fuels conflict. It builds invisible walls between hearts. Even worse, it often pushes people further away. When we try to coerce transformation, we rob people of the dignity of choice, and that damages both them and us. Real strength is not in persuasion. It is in presence. It is in being rooted in your truth without needing others to adopt it. It is in living your truth so clearly that others feel it, not just hear it. Influence flows from example, not insistence. It is in setting boundaries without needing to punish, in speaking truth without demanding agreement, in loving without dependency. True love, in the Stoic sense, allows freedom. It does not seek to possess or reshape the other. It simply offers itself honestly, without condition, and lets what is authentic rise naturally in return. This is a love that respects freedom and finds its strength in self-containment rather than control. When you stop forcing people to change, you open the door to real connection, not one built on manipulation, but on respect, on mutual understanding, on shared truth. You create space for honesty to flourish, not performance. You release the grip of expectations, and in doing so, allow love to emerge more freely, without pressure or pretense. You allow others to be who they are, even if that means they remain unchanged, even if their path diverges from your own. And you stay rooted in who you are, grounded in your values, not swayed by their reactions or resistance. You begin to see people not as projects, but as fellow travelers. You shift from controlling to witnessing, from managing to appreciating. And in that shift, the connection deepens. This shift is powerful. It frees you. It untangles you from the exhausting cycle of emotional management. It liberates the energy you once used trying to mold others into your vision of how they should be. That energy, once redirected inward, becomes clarity. It becomes strength. It becomes the capacity to stand calmly in your own center, even when others spin in circles around you. It releases the burden of control that you were never meant to carry, because control over others was never yours to hold. And when you lay it down, your hands are free to carry what actually belongs to you: your values, your peace, your truth. It lightens the emotional weight and opens the space for calm, kindness, and clarity to return. No longer pulled in 1,000 directions by the behavior or emotions of those around you, you find stillness. You become a safe space not just for others, but for yourself, and it invites peace into your relationships. A peace not born from agreement, but from acceptance. It's a peace that doesn't demand everyone think like you, act like you, or move at your pace. It honors their autonomy and protects your serenity. The Stoic does not chase, fix, or plead. They do not spend their energy trying to mold others. They conserve that energy for what truly matters, living by principle. They live, they speak, they embody. Their presence is a quiet invitation to rise, not a command to conform. And then they let the rest unfold, knowing that true influence begins where coercion ends, and that the deepest kind of transformation always begins with example, not pressure. Chapter 9. The Paradox of Power. There is a paradox in Stoicism. The less you force, the more powerful you become. True power is not in your grip, it's in your grace. It's not in domination or control, but in calm presence. Power does not lie in control. It lies in presence, in clarity, in unwavering values, in the stillness of someone who does not need outcomes to validate their worth, in the posture of someone who moves with purpose, not pressure. The one who does not need to force becomes magnetic. People trust them because they are not grasping. There is a rare kind of energy in a person who does not need anything from others to remain complete within themselves. They are whole from within, and that wholeness radiates a quiet authority. They command attention not because they demand it, but because their presence speaks for them. They don't compete, they contribute. They don't seek attention, they emanate groundedness. Opportunities come to them because they are not chasing. And when they arrive, these opportunities meet someone who is ready, not someone who is frantic, insecure, or reactive, but someone prepared, discerning, and steady. Life flows more easily, not because it is easier, but because they are no longer fighting it. They navigate with the current rather than attempting to bend the river to their will. They have stopped arguing with reality and started aligning with it. They don't need to wrestle with the river. They've learned how to swim, to breathe, and to trust that they will reach the shore in time. The Stoic becomes the calm in the storm, not because they stop the wind, but because they stop the panic. They find stillness where others find only chaos. They do not try to eliminate chaos. They simply refuse to be ruled by it. They anchor themselves. They become the center in a swirling world, grounded not in certainty of outcome, but in clarity of intention. They ground their thoughts, steady their breath, and respond instead of react. They don't let emotion hijack their judgment. They hold space within themselves that is untouched by circumstance. They practice reason. They lean on principle rather than impulse. They hold their philosophy like a compass, guiding them through uncertainty. Even in confusion, they are not lost, because they remain connected to their values. They remain undisturbed, not by withdrawing from life, but by engaging with it through a lens of wisdom, through presence instead of pressure. This is not weakness. This is mastery. This is strength refined through self-governance. It is the power of knowing you do not need to overpower anything to live powerfully. It is the realization that the most enduring influence comes not from force, but from consistency. Not from noise, but from depth. Not from dominance, but from understanding. This is what makes a Stoic powerful, not their ability to control the world, but their ability to remain whole while moving through it. In your own life, Reflect on where you've confused effort with control, where your intensity has become your prison, where the drive to be productive, to achieve, or to manage everything perfectly has overridden your ability to simply be, where striving has replaced sensing, where your to-do list has taken precedence over your peace. Ask yourself, am I pressing this because it is right, or because I am afraid of what happens if I don't? Am I taking action out of wisdom or out of worry? Ask, what if I released this? What if I let go? What would happen if I trusted instead of tensed? If I leaned into patience instead of urgency? If I allowed space instead of filling every gap with noise? Often the answer is not collapse, it is peace. A deep, nourishing peace that comes not from getting everything you want, but from realizing you didn't need to force anything to be okay. That what's real doesn't need pressure to last. That peace is found not at the end of control, but at the beginning of surrender. To live this way is to walk with quiet strength, a strength that does not announce itself, but is evident in every calm decision, every composed action. It is the strength that does not seek attention, yet holds authority, to act when needed and rest when not, to know that rest is not retreat, but wisdom, to move when there is alignment, and to remain still when the world clamors for reaction, to choose your moments with care, to know when to speak and when to stay silent, to speak not to dominate, but to reveal truth, to use words not to control, but to clarify, to let silence do its own kind of speaking, its own kind of healing, to understand that the greatest form of power is not in forcing outcomes, but in mastering yourself, mastering your impulses, your anxieties, your stories about how things must go, mastering the temptation to act out of fear instead of virtue, and in that mastery, discovering a power that flows effortlessly, not loud, not imposing, but unmistakably strong. The kind of strength that doesn't shout, but steadies the room. The kind that doesn't rush, but arrives exactly when it's needed and changes everything when it does. Chapter 10. Trust the process. Live the philosophy. All of Stoicism comes back to this. Live in agreement with nature, not in conflict with it, not in friction with the flow of reality, but in harmony with its rhythm. You were not made to bend the world through force of will or desperation. You were made to align with it, to move in concert with it, to bring your best to each moment, your full presence, your calm focus, your unwavering virtue, and to let the rest unfold as it must. Life is not your servant, it is your teacher, and your job is not to command it, but to walk alongside it with grace. Don't force anything is not about doing less, it's about doing right. It's not about disengagement or avoidance, it's about alignment. It's about knowing when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when silence carries more power. It's about moving with clarity, not confusion, with integrity, not ego, with calm, not chaos. It's the strength to walk away when it's not your battle, and the wisdom to lean in when it is. It's about trusting the process even when the outcome is unclear. It's about anchoring yourself to wisdom when the world tempts you to act out of fear. It's understanding that most problems don't require immediate action, they require centered observation. The Stoics were not passive, they were powerful, but their power was precise. It was thoughtful, it was intentional. It was not loud or frantic, but quiet and enduring. They did not waste effort on what was beyond their sphere. They conserved their energy for what was theirs to shape. They reserved their strength for what they could control, their thoughts, their responses, their principles. And in doing so, they became immovable. You can live this way, not someday, today, not by changing the world, but by changing your approach to it, by shifting from resistance to awareness, by letting the wind move around you instead of pushing against it, by no longer trying to force open doors that are closed for a reason. Some doors are shut because they are not meant for you or not meant for now. By no longer trying to control others who were never meant to be controlled. People are not puzzles to be solved, but souls to be honored. By no longer trying to force your timeline when a greater one is unfolding beneath it. There's a rhythm to the universe that does not answer to our deadlines. Live with open hands. Let go of the tension. Let go of the clenched fists and furrowed brows. You cannot receive what is meant for you if your hands are closed in control. Hold tightly only to what is yours, your character, your choices, your courage. Everything else is borrowed. Everything else is passing. Let it pass. Trust that when you stop forcing, you begin to see. You begin to notice what has always been there. Truth, beauty, opportunity, love, unfolding without your interference. You begin to live with a sensitivity to life's quiet guidance, with a readiness to welcome what is truly yours. When you stop grasping, you begin to receive. When you stop dictating, you begin to listen. Life moves toward you because you are no longer blocking it with fear. You stop crowding the doorway of your blessings. The life that is meant for you does not need to be wrestled into place. It will not arrive through your tension. It will not respond to pressure. It responds to presence. It responds to preparation. It arrives in time, like the seasons, like the sunrise, like the river meeting the sea, inevitable, effortless, ordained. It doesn't shout, it whispers. And when it arrives, you'll be ready, not because you chased it, but because you made space for it. Let this be your posture, still, strong, surrendered. Not weak, but deliberate. Not resigned, but awake. Not as one who has given up, but as one who has finally understood. That is the Stoic way. That is how you walk through the world, unshaken, unhurried, unforced. A quiet force of peace in a world addicted to panic.